Today was an ordinary college day, or so I thought. I was heading out of my lecture, minding my own business, when the sudden urge to use the restroom struck. For some quick background, I have a condition called POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which affects my blood flow and makes me dizzy when I stand up too quickly. Along with my trusty service dog, who helps keep me steady, I make use of the accessible restroom stalls when available. The extra space gives me room for my dog and helps me grab onto the bars for stability. So, with my service dog trotting along, I headed straight for the accessible stall. Once inside, I got settled, and my service dog nestled himself at my feet. I was almost ready to finish up when I noticed a wheelchair pull up right in front of the stall door. My first thought was, oh no, here comes the awkward timing. I figured she'd see my service dog's paws poking out from under the door and realize that I had my own reasons for using the stall. However, due to the angle she was at, it seemed she missed the clues, and apparently, I looked like your average non-disabled person. Then, I heard her voice, loud and unmistakably annoyed. You know this stall is for disabled people, right? She said in a tone that suggested she was laying down the law. Now, I get that not all disabilities are visible, but clearly, this girl had no clue that I had a legitimate reason to be in there. She must have thought I was just taking advantage of the accessible stall, so I figured I'd play along with her assumptions for a moment. Yes, I know. Thank you. I responded calmly, maybe even a bit cheerfully. I could tell my response threw her off slightly, but she doubled down, as if determined to correct me. A few seconds of silence passed before she piped up again, this time more emphatic. You know, it's illegal to use a handicap stall if you don't need it, she said, her tone laced with both irritation and self-righteousness. This made me chuckle, if only internally. For the record, this rule isn't true in the United States. Accessible stalls are meant for people who need them, yes, but that doesn't make it illegal for others to use them in a pinch, especially if they have disabilities that may not be immediately obvious. I couldn't resist, so I replied with a sarcastic, "Oh, really?" hoping she'd catch on that she was mistaken. I could hear a few of the other girls in line snickering as she dug her heels in further. She was clearly trying to teach me a lesson, or at least make me feel embarrassed. "Yes," she retorted. "And I'm going to talk to the dean if you don't get out right now?" At that point, I was ready to finish up and leave. I stood up, flushed, and opened the stall door. There I was, standing in front of her with my service dog right by my side, his harness clearly labeled. The girls who had been waiting burst into laughter, and I could see the look of horror on her face as her cheeks went beet red. Unable to resist, I gave her a little smirk and said, "Your turn," as I walked out, taking in the satisfaction of the moment. She began stammering, her tone suddenly changing as she tried to apologize. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know," she muttered, her voice trailing off, clearly mortified. I could have just left it at that, but I felt like she needed a little reminder. So as I washed my hands, I said, "I really hope you don't ever do that to someone who has a disability they can't prove to you on the spot." The other girls were still cracking up, and one of them gave me a high five as I finished washing my hands. The whole situation honestly felt like a scene from a sitcom, with the punchline delivered perfectly. I walked out of the bathroom, leaving her to stew in her embarrassment, and couldn't help but chuckle to myself all the way back to my car. I laughed so hard, I even called my best friend to tell her about the incident. Hopefully, she learned a valuable lesson about making assumptions and deciding who deserves access without knowing their story. Story 2. I'm struggling, and I really need some advice on a tough decision I'm facing. I'm 26, and my fiancée, who's also 26, and I have been together for 3 years. We share a beautiful 1-year-old child, and for the most part, we've been planning a future together that I thought was solid and hopeful. But his family, well, they've been a challenge for us since the very beginning. They've always had opinions about our relationship, even from when we first started dating, and it's honestly exhausting trying to navigate their expectations versus what we want for ourselves. When we got engaged last year, I was about 7 weeks pregnant. It was a huge moment, and I was so hopeful. But even then, I was cautious. Before I said yes to his proposal, I was very clear about setting some boundaries and expectations. I know his family's influence on him, so I didn't want any surprises about where I stood. One of the things I asked for was that we both sign a prenup and, later, a postnup. It wasn't because I didn't trust him, it was because I wanted us to have clear agreements in place, given that I'd worked hard for the things I had before we met, like my condo. He agreed, and I genuinely thought we were on the same page. Fast forward to now, our little one just turned 1, and it felt like the perfect time to start planning our wedding. We decided we wanted it to be small and intimate, just with close friends and immediate family. We both liked the idea of it being a meaningful gathering, not a huge event that felt out of our control. We even scheduled time off from work to start looking at venues and sorting out the details together. I felt excited, thinking this would be a chance for us to make something beautiful that represented our relationship. But then he told his parents about our plans, and that's when everything started unraveling. They were not happy, to say the least. His parents expected us to throw a huge wedding so that they could invite their extended family and basically everyone they knew. According to them, they deserved this big celebration for their son. When my fiancé told me, I was shocked. This wasn't about what they wanted, it was about us, and what felt right for us and our little family. I told him that, as politely as I could, but I could tell he was caught between his family and me. Instead of understanding my perspective, he sided with them and argued that his family deserved to be part of our special day. What hurt even more was that he went ahead and disclosed our plans for the prenup and postnup to his parents. I couldn't believe he'd shared something so private without even talking to me first. And, of course, his parents had a lot to say about it. They thought it was disgraceful and unwomanly for me to even suggest such a thing. His mother said I was being disrespectful to him by asking him to sign these documents. They even told him he should force me out of it, that he should take charge of this marriage before we even began. It was like they were trying to paint me as some kind of villain. Unfortunately, this isn't new. His parents have been commenting on our relationship for as long as I can remember. They've suggested countless times that it's wrong that I make more money than him, or that I should put his name on my condo as some show of loyalty or commitment. And it's always left me feeling unsettled, but until now, I managed to set it aside and work through it. Usually, we'd handle it over a phone call or a text, with a promise that we'd keep things peaceful. But this is different. This whole situation has left me questioning everything. It's like a wake-up call that he might never fully stand up for me or our little family when it counts. I feel like I'm not just marrying him, I'm marrying him and his family. And while I understand that he loves them deeply, I can't help but wonder, does he love them more than the family we're creating together? We're still scheduled to take time off on Monday to go see some venues, but now I'm sitting here wondering if I even want to go. I feel completely stuck. On the one hand, I love him, and I don't want to tear our family apart. I want to believe that we can figure this out, that he'll see where I'm coming from and stand up for us. But on the other hand, I'm terrified. If he can't prioritize our relationship and set boundaries with his family now, what does that mean for our future? Am I setting myself up for years of being undermined, ignored, or disrespected every time his family disagrees with something? I want to have a real conversation with him about how I feel, but I also know it will be painful. I don't want to put him in the position of choosing between me and his family, and I understand that's a difficult choice to ask of anyone. But if he can't be clear with them about respecting our boundaries and decisions, I'm not sure I can keep moving forward. I feel so guilty, too, because our child deserves a stable family. I worry about breaking us apart, but I also fear what might happen if I keep sacrificing my needs and comfort to keep everyone else happy. I don't want to lose myself trying to make this work, but I also can't shake the fear of tearing apart something we've worked so hard to build. So here I am, reaching out to strangers online, hoping for a bit of clarity or insight. I don't want to complain about my fiancé to our mutual friends because that's not my style. I've always kept our relationship issues private. But I'm feeling so alone in this, and I'm not sure what my next move should be. Am I overthinking things? Is there a way to salvage this without compromising who I am? Or am I justified in feeling that his family's influence could ruin what we've built together? I'd appreciate any advice, thoughts, or experiences anyone can share. I'm just a woman trying to build a family, and now I'm not sure if the one I envisioned is even possible. Story 3, I, 31F, am considering a divorce with my husband, 33M, while he's in a psychiatric hospital, but don't know if it's the right thing to do. I know it sounds absolutely terrible, but I genuinely don't know what to do anymore. I made some posts about my husband's odd behavior regarding our daughter, 6 now, 5 at the time, and her artwork. To sum things up, he was destroying/throwing away the art she was making, without telling me, and lying about it. I had confronted him about it, but he got defensive and went so far as to break our art supplies afterwards. I dropped off our daughter with my mom before trying to talk to him again, since I was nervous, honestly. I didn't know what he'd do. It's been over a year since then at this point, but basically, I told him that I was worried. That he was acting really erratic, and that I really thought he should try and get some help. And he agreed. I was so relieved, and we talked about getting in touch with a therapist, trying to figure out why he was so against the art. He told me at the time that he didn't know why it bothered him, but I'm not really sure if he was lying or not. Things were fine for a couple weeks, with him leaving and going to therapy, and our daughter being happy and fine. Honestly, I thought that was the end of it. That he had some issue, but was working on it. Except I was completely wrong. I got home one night after being out with some friends, and he told me that he didn't feel comfortable being around our daughter. I was absolutely taken off guard, because I thought he was doing better, and more so I didn't think it was this big of a deal. Not to the point of being worried about safety. Looking back, it wasn't the right choice, but I begged him not to go. It didn't matter anyway. He packed up some clothes, and left after checking on our daughter who was asleep. I was crushed. He didn't even wait until morning to say a proper goodbye to her, and this whole thing just came out of the blue. He drove a couple hours away to a hospital closer to where his family lived, and admitted himself. I felt just so numb and confused, because obviously I would support him no matter what, but this felt like such a rapid escalation that I just didn't know how to handle. And that's basically where we are now. It's basically been a little over a year, and he's still there. There was one hell of an adjustment period, but I promised him that I was there for him no matter what. That I still love him, that I'm proud of him for working on himself. And I mean all that, I really do. But things just aren't getting better. At first we spoke most days, either on just the phone or on video call. But it got less and less, until now where he maybe calls me once a week. Our daughter has adjusted so well, but I think she's getting a sense of permanence about it all, and I can't say I blame her. It's feeling pretty permanent to me, too. I don't even know truthfully why he's still there. Not that I knew why he went in the first place. I ask him about it, but he gets weird and dodgy, and I just can't bring myself to fight it. He's got a right to privacy, but at the same time, I'm his wife. I wish I wasn't quite as much a pacifist. Recently, I was talking with my BIL, who's one of my only in-laws who still really talks to me. My MIL basically doesn't say a word to me, even when I reach out. Sometimes she'll ask about my daughter, but it's just depressingly silent. But BIL still acts like I'm family, which I am. And he came over recently, and we were talking. And he mentioned that he visited my husband. I was utterly speechless. My husband hasn't let me or our daughter visit. I understand that a brother is different, but still, I'm his wife. I just don't really know what to do about it. BIL said that my husband seems to be doing better, seems happier, but I don't know what to believe anymore. My husband still refuses to give any sort of timeline on how long he's planning to stay in the hospital, and I'm at the end of my rope. I promised that I'd love and support him, but I just feel so alone. I feel like he doesn't really talk to me anymore, let alone love me. And honestly, my daughter seems just as happy as she was before, if not happier. She gets upset about her daddy sometimes, but most of the time it's almost like she's forgotten about him. I used to try and make sure she still felt connected, still felt like her daddy was a part of her life, but as of late it's just hard to feel right doing so. The man barely talks to us anymore. I don't want to be married anymore. Not like this. I feel like scum even thinking about it, but I just can't imagine ever returning to normal after this. I basically haven't known what's going on with my husband for over a year now, and I've never felt so alone in my entire life. And I can't help but feel like maybe if I just end things, that I might be able to start feeling okay again. Am I being stupid? Should I keep trying to push through this with my husband, or am I maybe in the right for at least exploring the option of divorce? I don't know what to do, and could really use some advice about all this.